Hello everyone, my name is Cherie. In this video, I'll share with you what I watched in the month of October. I took a 31-day horror movie challenge and uploaded daily videos about the films. I won't re-review any of these, but I'll add a bell to their slides so you'll know you can reference them through my 31-day horror movie challenge playlist. Although it was mostly a horror watch month, in honor of German American Heritage Month, as well as Italian American Heritage Month, I viewed a few movies from those countries as well. But first, let's talk about the series. Only Murders in the Building Season 3 takes our podcasting trio to Broadway, where the leading man drops dead during the show, and they must solve the mystery of whodunit. Meryl Streep co-starred this season, and it was absolutely wonderful. Next is Mike Flanagan's new Netflix series, The Fall of the House of Usher. It follows two ruthless siblings who build a family dynasty that begins to crumble when their heirs start to die. This was a brutal show, very downbeat with unlikable characters. A monologue during the last 15 minutes was what saved it for me. And Mark Hamill was excellent as a supporting character. Still, I doubt I'll rewatch this series, which was missing the heart that all of Mike Flanagan's previous works have possessed. The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad is a 1949 Disney animation that adapts The Wind in the Willows and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I'm surprised I'd never seen this in its entirety. I seem to recall the Headless Horseman section from my childhood, but none of the other stories leading up to it. The Sleepy Hollow tale is still scary, great for a Halloween watch with little kids. Audition from 1999. A widower uses a soap opera audition as a dating service in an attempt to find a new wife. The Awakening from 2011. In post-World War I England, a paranormal researcher who dedicates herself to exposing frauds investigates a haunting at a boys' boarding school. The Bird with a Crystal Plumage was released in 1970. An American expatriate in Rome attempts to unmask a serial killer he witnessed in the act of an attempted murder. This giallo thriller is the first film directed by Italy's master of horror, Dario Argento. It's nice to look at, but has kind of a senseless story. And the version I watched was dubbed, which always annoys me. However, this film is significant in that it was a predecessor to, and had an influence on, later American slasher films. Black Sunday from 1960. A vengeful witch and her fiendish servant return from the grave and begin a bloody campaign to possess the body of the witch's look-alike descendant. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from 2022. When a group of 20-somethings gets stuck at a remote mansion during a hurricane, a party game gone very wrong ends with a dead body on the ground and fake friends at every turn. The Changeling from 1980. After the death of his wife and daughter, a music professor rents a long vacant mansion where he is dragged into a decades-old mystery by a presence in the attic. Creature from the Black Lagoon from 1954. A group of scientists try to capture a strange prehistoric beast from the Amazon. Dr. Sleep from 2019. Years following the events of The Shining, a now adult Dan Torrance must protect a young girl from a cult who prey on children with powers in order to remain immortal. The Final Girls from 2015. A young woman grieving the loss of her mother, a famous scream queen from the 80s, finds herself pulled into the world of her mom's most famous movie. Friday the 13th from 1980. While attempting to reopen an abandoned summer camp with a tragic past, a group of teenage camp counselors are murdered one by one. Ganja and Hess from 1973. Germs from the stab of an ancient dagger turns two lovers into immortal vampires. The Ghost of Mrs. Muir is a 1947 supernatural romantic fantasy starring Gene Tierney and Rex Harrison. In 1900, a young widow finds her seaside cottage is haunted and forms a unique relationship with its ghost. The film was based on a 1945 novel of the same name, and was later turned into a TV series that ran from 1968 to 1970. This feels like an early rom-com. I love it, and the ending always makes me cry. This is probably where my fascination with sea captains began. The Golem, How He Came into the World, was released in 1920 and was inspired by a Jewish folk tale. A 16th century rabbi creates a giant clay monster to defend his people, then loses control of it. This silent horror film is a leading example of early German expressionism. Evidently, it inspired James Whale's version of Frankenstein, and I can see the similarities between the golem and the monster. I really liked the cinematography and the sets. Although it's a black and white film, many of the scenes were color tinted. If this were remade today, I'd definitely buy a ticket. Goodnight Mommy from 2014 follows twin boys who don't recognize their mother after she has face-changing cosmetic surgery. This is an Austrian film, and the location and cinematography are gorgeous. It's a bit of a body horror, so I don't think I'll ever rewatch it. Naomi Watts starred in the 2022 American remake. Goosebumps from 2015. A teenager teams up with the daughter of YA horror author R.L. Stine after the writer's imaginary demons are set free in his town. Halloween from 1978. 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night, Michael Myers escapes from a mental hospital and returns to his small town to kill again. The Hills Have Eyes from 1977. On a road trip through the desert, a family stranded in the area finds that cannibalistic hillbillies have targeted the group and are set on killing them for food. Knock at the Cabin came out earlier this year and is based on the novel The Cabin at the End of the World. A girl and her parents are taken hostage by armed strangers who demand that the family make an unthinkable choice to avert the apocalypse. I really enjoyed watching this, even though the ending was a little downbeat. I loved all the actors, and the way the story unfolded kept me riveted to the screen. Kwaidan from 1964, an anthology that adapts 4 Japanese folktales with supernatural themes. Leprechaun from 1993. An evil, sadistic leprechaun goes on a killing rampage in search of his beloved pot of gold. Little Monsters from 2019. A teacher, a struggling musician, and a kids' show personality join forces to protect young children during an unexpected zombie invasion. Malignant from 2021. Paralyzed by fear from shocking visions, a woman's torment worsens as she discovers her waking dreams are terrifying realities. Marrowbone, also known as The Secret of Marrowbone, from 2017. A young man and his younger siblings, who have concealed the death of their mother in order to remain together, are plagued by a sinister presence in their home. 2022's The Menu follows a young couple eating at an exclusive island restaurant, where the chef has prepared a lavish menu with some shocking surprises. I saw this in theaters when it came out, and some of the scenes really stuck with me. Upon rewatch, I enjoyed it even more. Ralph Fiennes is superb as the tragic genius chef. Nicholas Hoult is hilarious as the pretentious foodie. And Anya Taylor-Joy is a joy to watch as someone who won't drink the Kool-Aid. Mummies, released this year, is an animation that follows 3 mummies who journey to London in search of a stolen wedding ring. This is the second English-language Spanish film I watched this month, Marrowbone being the first. I thought Mummies was really cute and would recommend it for a family movie night. Nope from 2022. Horse-wrangling siblings attempt to capture evidence of an unidentified flying object over their ranch. Nosferatu the Vampire is a Werner Herzog adaptation released in 1979. When Count Dracula moves from Transylvania to Wismar, spreading the Black Plague, only a woman pure of heart can bring an end to his reign of horror. Honestly, I found this kind of boring, even though I love the actors Klaus Kinski and Isabelle Adjani, even though the cinematography was gorgeous, and even though it inspired Kate Bush to use the same Georgian folk song in her own composition, Hello Earth. This film was like watching slow-moving poetry. Fresh off of Frankenstein, director James Whale and actor Boris Karloff re-teamed on The Old Dark House, released in 1932. Seeking shelter from a brutal thunderstorm in Wales, 5 travelers spend a bizarre and terrifying night at a crumbling family estate. I happened to stumble across this on YouTube and was glad I did. It's super atmospheric, and the story was interesting enough for its hour and 12-minute runtime. Fun fact, The Old Dark House is one of the films that inspired the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Picture of Dorian Gray from 1945. An attractive Englishman remains young and handsome, while his portrait shows the ravages of age and sin. Puppet Master from 1989. Psychics find themselves plotted against by a former colleague who discovered animated murderous puppets. Raw from 2016. During her first week at veterinary school, a vegetarian tastes meat for the first time and soon develops a craving for flesh. The Shining from 1980. A family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter, where a sinister presence influences the father into violence, while his psychic son sees horrific forebodings from both past and future. Shoeshine is an Italian neo-realist film from 1946. Two shoeshine boys in post-war Rome save up to buy a horse, but their involvement as dupes in a burglary lands them in juvenile prison. Shoeshine became the first film to win the Academy Award for Best International Feature at the 20th Academy Awards in 1947. This is the fourth Vittorio De Sica film I've seen, after Bicycle Thieves, Two Women, and The Garden of the Finzi Continis. They all have a similar style. While I can appreciate Italian neorealism, it's not my favorite film movement. Watching these movies feels like homework for film school, or eating your vegetables. Skinamarink from 2022. Two children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing and all the windows and doors in their home have vanished. Studio 666 from 2022. Legendary rock band Foo Fighters move into a mansion steeped in grisly rock and roll history to record their much-anticipated 10th album. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. Five friends visiting the country are hunted and terrorized by a chainsaw-wielding killer. The Tingler from 1959. A scientist discovers a parasite in human beings called a tingler, which feeds on fear. Triangle is a 2009 British-Australian thriller. A group of friends overturns their yacht and is forced to take refuge in a drifting ocean liner, only to find themselves hunted by an unseen attacker. Triangle is a trippy, time-loopy joyride. This was my second watch, and I can definitely see a third watch in the future. Trick or Treat from 2007 tells 4 intertwined stories that all take place one Halloween night. How had I never seen nor heard about this one before? It was mentioned on a horror YouTuber's Halloween watch list, so I decided to give it a try. The orange costume kid Sam was great. I love how he was witness to all the horrible events of the evening. I also really liked how all the stories were woven together. While this wasn't one of my favorites from the month of October, I can see myself watching it again if the mood strikes. Viking Wolf from 2022. After witnessing a grotesque murder at a party in her new town, a teenager starts having strange visions and bizarre desires. V from 1967. A young priest is ordered to preside over the wake of a witch in a remote village. The Ward from 2010. An institutionalized young woman becomes terrorized by a ghost. Wes Craven's New Nightmare from 1994. As Heather Langenkamp considers making another Nightmare on Elm Street film with Wes Craven, her son falls under the spell of the iconic villain Freddy Krueger. 1973's The Wicker Man is folk horror at its finest. A Puritan police sergeant arrives in a Scottish island village in search of a missing girl, who the pagan locals claim never existed. Cinefantastique magazine described this as the Citizen Kane of horror movies. I might not disagree. This is a WTF film, but in the best way possible. It's practically a musical. The great soundtrack is filled with folk songs, both traditional and original. No, I have not seen the Nicolas Cage remake, but I love this movie and just added the DVD to my Amazon wish list. And that was it. In summary, I watched 2 series and 45 films in October of 2023. Both series were new to me. 38 movies were new to me, and 7 movies were rewatches. I watched these movies from Germany and Austria. I watched these movies from Italy, and I watched these movies for the 31-day horror movie challenge. I heart these ones the most. Thank you for joining me for my October wrap-up. November is Native American Heritage Month, and I'd love some suggestions. Until next time, happy viewing.